He mocked the waitress for serving a ragged homeless man, fired her on the spot, shattered a plate to prove a point. After all, Wayne Becker ran his diner with pride and iron control. They thought he was protecting standards. What they didn't know? That the man he threw out was a decorated war hero and the father of a colonel. Stick around, because when 200 uniformed soldiers show up the next morning, coffee in hand, they're not here for breakfast. They're here for reckoning. Share where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Hit that subscribe button to catch all our Wayne Becker's golden watch glinted under the harsh diner lights as he surveyed his domain, pride swelling in his chest at the morning bustle of Billy's diner. 27 years of iron-fisted control had built this place into what it was, and he wasn't about to let some bleeding-heart waitress ruin it all. The familiar weight of his grandmother's vintage plate collector's pin on his lapel reassured him as he watched Clara making a scene near table 7. "Sir, please, let me just get him some coffee. He's a veteran," Clara's voice carried across the diner, drawing unwanted attention to the shabby man hunched in the corner. Wayne's jaw clenched as he saw phones starting to record. This was his stage, his show, and he wouldn't let anyone steal the spotlight. The crash of his grandmother's opening day plate hitting the floor sent a jolt through his system. 27 years of luck, shattered in an instant. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent diner, phones pivoting to capture his reaction. Wayne's nostrils flared as he stormed forward, his expensive shoes crunching over the ceramic shards. "You're fired!" he bellowed, pointing toward the door with a hand adorned by his prized class ring. "Get out of my diner, now!" His voice carried the weight of decades of unquestioned authority. But something was different this time. Clara didn't cower like the others had. Instead, she stood straighter, her phone already live-streaming. "Everyone, meet Wayne Becker, owner of Billy's Diner, who'd rather throw away good plates and good people than serve a homeless veteran." Wayne's face burned as he noticed #diner drama already appearing on the phones around him. He reached up to adjust his collector's pin, a nervous habit he'd developed over the years. "This is my business," he declared, voice rising. "I decide who stays and who goes. Nobody tells me how to run my diner." A quiet voice from the corner cut through his bluster. "Sir, I recognize that pin. 3rd Infantry Division, like your grandmother's plate?" The homeless veteran's eyes met Wayne's, steady and knowing. "Funny how things change. Once upon a time, that pin meant serving others." Wayne's hand froze on the pin as whispers rippled through the crowd. His carefully maintained control began to crack like the shattered plate at his feet. The morning light streaming through his prized front windows suddenly felt like a spotlight, exposing every flaw in his perfectly polished facade. Will Wayne Becker's iron grip on Billy's Diner survive as his actions go viral? Can 27 years of control withstand the power of a single moment of truth? Type "control" in the comments if you've ever seen power crumble in an instant. Standing amid the broken pieces of his grandmother's plate, Wayne felt the weight of his collector's pin like never before. 27 years of running Billy's Diner his way, keeping everything polished and perfect, controlling every detail. But now, surrounded by recording phones and disgusted faces, something deep inside whispered that perhaps he'd forgotten what his grandmother had taught him about the pin, that true leadership meant serving others, not controlling them. Had he been building an empire or a prison of his own making? The sound of the door chime jolted Wayne from his thoughts as Clara's final words rang out. "Your grandmother served with honor in the 3rd Infantry, Mr. Becker. I wonder what she'd think of her plate being broken to keep a veteran from getting coffee in her diner." The morning sun caught Wayne's golden watch as he stood frozen, surrounded by the evidence of his shattered control, while Hat's diner drama trended higher with each passing second. Wayne Becker paced behind his diner's counter, obsessively polishing the same spot until the chrome gleamed painfully bright. His father's watch weighed on his wrist like an anchor, its gentle ticking suddenly accusatory. The morning rush had thinned, but the empty seats felt wrong. Not just quiet, but watchful. Every notification on his phone made him flinch. Clara's post had exploded overnight. 57,000 shares and climbing. The security footage she'd uploaded showed everything. His finger jabbing the air, the veteran's weathered face crumpling, Clara's badge hitting the counter as she walked out. The comments were brutal. Like father, like son, someone had written, both betraying veterans. Wayne Becker's hands trembled as he remembered his father's last coherent day, sitting at this very counter. "Promise me you'll keep the place going right," Dad had said, the Vietnam 1,000-yard stare briefly clearing. "Take care of people like I couldn't." Wayne had nodded, desperate to escape that haunted gaze. He'd been running from it ever since. The morning news played quietly on the mounted TV. A specialist in workplace discrimination was discussing how small business owners often perpetuated systemic biases through seemingly rational business decisions. Wayne Becker's throat tightened as the expert described how trauma could echo through generations, causing people to recreate the very patterns that had hurt them. His phone buzzed again. The local Veterans Association had shared Clara's post. Their caption cut deep. "When those who profit from freedom forget its cost." The watch felt like it was burning his skin now. Wayne Becker yanked it off, nearly dropping it as his mother's voice echoed from decades ago. "Your father just needs time. The diner helps him feel normal again." Regular customers still came in, but their eyes slid away from his. Mrs. Henderson, who'd been coming in for 30 years, asked quietly, "Did you know my Harold served with your father? He'd be heartbroken." Wayne Becker's carefully constructed walls began to crack. The afternoon brought more revelations. Someone had dug up old articles about his father's diner, how it had become a sanctuary for returning veterans, a place where they could sit quietly and belong. Wayne Becker had systematically dismantled that legacy, focusing on profit margins and presentable customers. The truth hit him like a physical blow. He'd turned his father's haven into exactly the kind of place that had rejected him after the war. The watch lay accusingly on his desk in the back office. Wayne Becker found himself opening his father's old logbooks, seeing for the first time the careful notes. "Joe needs extra time with his coffee. Flashback's bad today. Make sure Mike knows he's welcome even on bad days. Remember, every veteran is someone's son." His phone wouldn't stop. Local news wanted comments. Veteran groups were organizing a protest. Becker Betrays was trending. Each notification felt like another brick in a wall between him and his father's legacy. Have you ever discovered you've become what you promised to fight against? Type "Legacy Lost" if you've ever had to face your own betrayal. Wayne Becker's hands shook as he reached for the watch again. The glass face reflected his eyes. His father's eyes. The same haunted look he'd spent decades trying to forget. The weight of inherited trauma and abandoned promises pressed down on him as the diner's bell chimed mockingly, announcing more customers he'd have to face with this new, devastating self-knowledge. The afternoon stretched endlessly as Wayne Becker realized that every business decision, every reasonable rule he'd implemented, had been another brick in a wall between him and his father's compassion. He'd chosen profit over purpose, control over care. becoming the very thing that had broken his father's spirit after the war. The truth was a bitter pill. He hadn't protected his father's legacy. He'd buried it. And now, like the veterans his father had once sheltered, he was facing a long, dark night of the soul, with nowhere left to hide. Wayne Becker's hands trembled as he stood behind the diner's counter, watching another group of regular customers walk past his windows without even a glance inside. The morning rush hour had brought only 3 customers, the lowest count in the diner's 30-year history. Each empty booth seemed to mock him, their vinyl seats gleaming accusingly under the fluorescent lights. His fingers unconsciously traced the outline of his father's old military photo hanging behind the register, a ritual that had always brought comfort before. But today, the glass felt cold, almost hostile. The image of Colonel James Turner's military ID card burned in his mind, its edges crisp and clear despite his desperate attempts to forget. "Sir?" His remaining waitress, Martha, approached cautiously. "Channel 7 is outside again. They're interviewing more veterans." Wayne Becker's stomach clenched as he glimpsed the growing crowd through the blinds. The hashtag Becker betrayed flashed on their phones and signs, a digital wildfire he couldn't contain. The diner's phone rang, the 5th time in an hour. Wayne Becker let it go to voicemail, already knowing it would be another cancellation for the weekly Veterans Breakfast Club that had been meeting here for decades. His father had started that tradition. Now, like everything else, it was crumbling. His watch, a gift from his father upon inheriting the diner, sat dead on his wrist. 30 years of reliable service stopped the moment Colonel Turner's ID had clattered onto his counter. The coincidence felt like an omen, each frozen second an indictment. The security cameras whirred overhead, recording his isolation. Where regulars once greeted him with warm familiarity, now there was only empty space and silence. The morning sun cast long shadows across the checkerboard floor, making the diner feel like a mausoleum. Wayne Becker's phone buzzed with a news alert. His fingers shook as he read the headline: Distinguished Service Cross recipient identified as homeless veteran in diner incident. The article detailed Colonel Turner's heroic actions in Desert Storm, actions that had saved Wayne Becker's father's entire unit. The realization crashed over him like a wave of ice water. He had thrown out the man who had given him the chance to grow up with a father. The man whose leadership had shaped the very values his father had instilled in him. Values he had betrayed with a moment's cruel judgment. Have you ever watched your life's work dissolve before your eyes? Type legacy if you've felt the weight of your mistakes crushing everything you've built. The morning dragged on, each hour marked by more empty tables and whispered conversations outside. Local veterans groups had called for a complete boycott. The diner's social media pages overflowed with outrage. His attempts to delete negative comments only fueled the fire, screenshots spreading faster than he could click. Wayne Becker found himself standing before his father's military photo again, the glass now smudged with his fingerprints. The man in uniform stared back, eyes filled with a disappointment that mirrored the growing horror in Wayne Becker's heart. Behind him, the security cameras continued their silent vigil, recording the moment his carefully constructed world began to crack and fall away, revealing the hollow space where his principles should have been. Through the window, he watched as more veterans joined the growing crowd, their medals catching the morning light. Each flash felt like a judgment, each gathered group a reminder of the community he had betrayed. The diner's neon open sign buzzed mockingly above their heads, drawing attention to the emptiness within. The weight of his father's legacy pressed down on him like a physical force. Wayne Becker slumped against the counter, the cold surface offering no comfort. The morning stretched ahead, promising more revelations, more consequences, more evidence of how far he had fallen from the values that had built this place. And somewhere out there, Colonel Turner's ID card seemed to pulse like a beacon, calling out his shame to the world. The morning sun hit the chrome trim of my diner like an accusation. I straightened my collar, adjusted my father's gold watch, my symbol of success for 27 years, and tried to ignore the growing crowd across the street. But something felt different. Wrong. The usual breakfast rush hour approached, but the parking lot remained empty. The door chime rang. My head snapped up, expecting, hoping for regular customers. Instead, the first military uniform walked in. Then another. And another. The silent procession continued until every seat filled with pressed uniforms and stern faces. My throat went dry as I recognized Colonel Turner at their head, younger, sharper, and carrying his father's weathered veteran's cap. 200 seats, Wayne Becker, Colonel Turner announced, his voice carrying through the deafening silence. 200 servicemen and women who heard how you treated my father, how you fired Clara James for showing him basic human dignity. My fingers trembled against the counter. Through the windows, I could see Clara across the street, surrounded by supporters, local news crews training their cameras on my diner. The hashtag #Becker's bigotry was already trending. My nephew had texted me the screenshots an hour ago. We'll each order coffee, Colonel Turner continued, and sit here all day if necessary. Every cup a reminder of what this place once meant to the community. Every minute a chance for you to remember who you really are. My father's watch felt impossibly heavy on my wrist. I remembered him standing behind this same counter, welcoming everyone, veterans, families, workers, all of them. A diner isn't just about food, son, he'd said. It's about dignity. The door chime rang again. This time it sounded like judgment. More uniforms filed in, standing along the walls now. My kitchen staff watched through the service window, their faces a mixture of shame and accusation. Jenny, my best waitress after Clara, silently removed her apron and walked out. Type dignity if you believe every person deserves respect, flashed across local news feeds as they live-streamed the protest. The weight of 200 silent witnesses pressed against my chest. Each gleaming medal, each crisp uniform representing someone who'd sacrificed for the very freedoms I'd abused. My hands shook as I tried to work the register, the numbers blurring before my eyes. Through the window, I watched Clara speaking to reporters, her head held high. She wasn't broken. She'd become stronger. While I'd become what? The gold watch caught the light, and suddenly I saw my reflection in its face, distorted, diminished. Your coffee will be getting cold, Mr. Becker, Colonel Turner said quietly. Just like my father was that day. The words hit me like physical blows. 27 years of pride, of thinking I was protecting standards, of telling myself I was upholding tradition. It all crumbled under the weight of that simple truth. I walked out from behind the counter, my legs unsteady. The door chime rang one final time as I stepped outside. The morning air felt different now, clearer perhaps, or maybe I was finally seeing clearly. With trembling fingers, I unclasped my father's watch. I'm sorry, I said, my voice breaking. I forgot who I was supposed to be. The crowd across the street fell silent. 200 uniforms watched through the windows. Clara stepped forward, her eyes meeting mine without hatred. just a steady demand for change. I held out the watch, this symbol of everything I'd gotten wrong. My father would have been ashamed of what I've become, but maybe it's not too late to remember what he really built here. Share this moment if you believe in second chances, rippled through the growing social media storm. The sun caught the watch's face one last time as I held it out to Clara, not as restitution, but as a promise to change, to remember, to rebuild not just a business, but the dignity my father had once made its foundation. The door chime echoed behind me, but this time it sounded different, like hope. Wayne Becker stands at the gleaming counter of what was once Becker's Classic Diner, now transformed into Community Kitchen and Veterans Haven. His weathered hands trace the edge of the donation box, already full on this early morning. The weight of his journey settles around him like the morning mist. 24 hours ago, I was a different man, Wayne Becker murmurs, adjusting his plain white apron, no longer the crisp, monogrammed one that once declared his ownership. The morning sun catches the empty spot on his wrist where his father's watch used to rest. Now it sits in the memorial display case, alongside photos of local veterans and their stories, a testament to his transformation. The first customers begin filtering in, a mix of suited professionals and homeless veterans sharing coffee and conversation. Wayne Becker watches them, remembering how he once would have rushed to remove anyone who didn't fit his image of a proper customer. The shame burns fresh, but it's cleansing now, not crushing. "Mr. Becker?" Clara's voice carries the same strength it did when she stood up to him, but the edge is gone. She's holding a tray of fresh muffins, the recipe from his father's old notebook. "The Veterans Breakfast Program starts in 10 minutes. Wayne Becker nods, swallowing hard. "I'll get the coffee started." His voice catches as he sees James, the homeless veteran he'd tried to throw out, helping another veteran navigate the entrance with his wheelchair. The sound of their laughter mingles with the gentle chime of the door, no longer a warning bell of unwanted visitors, but a welcome song. The morning rush builds, but it's different now. Wayne Becker moves among the tables, pouring coffee, listening to stories, learning names. Each veteran's tale strikes his heart like a bell, reminding him of his father's words about service and dignity. The vintage plates he'd been so proud of are gone, replaced by sturdy ceramic mugs that say, "All welcome here." A local news crew sets up in the corner, preparing for a live segment about the diner's transformation. The hashtag #BeckersChange has been trending since yesterday, when he announced the conversion to a community kitchen. Wayne Becker feels his chest tighten as he watches the reporter gesture toward the memorial wall. "Type change in the comments if you believe in second chances," the reporter says to her camera, and Wayne Becker can almost hear the clicks of thousands of viewers responding. He pauses by the memorial display, where his father's watch keeps time among the veterans' photos. The glass reflects his image. Still Wayne Becker, but humbled, transformed. The morning light catches the watch face, and for a moment he swears he sees his father's smile in the gleam. "The hardest truth," Wayne Becker says to no one in particular, "isn't admitting you were wrong. It's realizing that being right never mattered as much as being kind." He straightens his apron, turns to greet another group of veterans entering his diner. No, their diner now. The door chimes again, and Wayne Becker smiles. "Share this moment if you believe one person's change can spark a community's transformation," he whispers, understanding finally that his father's legacy wasn't in the watch or the diner's name, but in the simple act of serving others with dignity. Clara passes by with more coffee, and Wayne Becker catches her eye. "Thank you," he says, meaning it more than ever before, "for showing me what my father's diner was always meant to be." The morning sun streams through the windows, catching the new sign. Community Kitchen and Veterans Haven, founded by James Becker, transformed by his son. Wayne Becker straightens his shoulders, picks up the coffee pot, and steps forward into his new purpose, finally understanding that sometimes losing everything you thought mattered leads you to everything that truly does. Drop 1. If this story touched your heart, and comment below. What would you give up to make your community stronger?